Fundamental attribution error, or FAE, is this notion in psychology that helps us understand how we rationalize behavior. And at its most basic level, FAE is about overestimating the importance and influence of personality in determining behavior, and underestimating the importance or influence of situation or circumstance in rationalizing behavior and understanding it. Now, FAE was initially proposed as something that explained this kind of behavior rationalization with people that we do not know well, so strangers, acquaintances, and that's what most of the research points at. I want to bring this up, though, because I see this a lot in my discussions with parents, that even though the relationship between parent and child is supposed to be one that is very close and connected, where we understand the strengths and the opportunities that each other has, it winds up that FAE comes out a lot, at least on the parent side. I can't speak for the kids, but I can say that as a parent who listens to a lot of other parents talk about the things that are going on with their kids, FAE is something that happens frequently. So I want to explain this to you so that you are aware of it and so that you can spot this tendency when you do it, because you do this. We all want to think that we don't do this, but we do. It's just part of how people are wired. So, fundamental attribution error exists on two dimensions, really. And the first dimension is the subject, the person that we're studying the behavior in. And that can be ourselves, so that could be self, or it could be someone else, which in this case is most likely to be a child, but maybe another parent or potentially your partner in parenting. And the other dimension here is the behavior that we are observing, and whether that behavior is a positive, beneficial, desirable behavior, or it's a negative, undesirable, unfavorable behavior. You may hear someone else talk about FAE in terms of good or bad in looking at the behavior, and I like to stay away from that because of the connotation that it has for behavior, that especially with parents, I think, they say good or bad and their kids hear that, and it's just it's this big, ugly labeling situation waiting to happen that has adverse consequences for decades. So that's why I try to stay away from it, but you understand the difference, so you can call it whatever it is that you'd like to call it. So that means then that we have 4 areas. If we're looking at that little matrix, we have 4 areas to evaluate when we're looking at FAE. So let's first look at when we're looking at someone else's behavior, because I think that's the easiest one for us to see. Or, excuse me, the easier one for us to see. So if we're looking at someone else's behavior and we see that it's a positive, favorable, desirable behavior, what happens then under FAE is that we are more likely to explain that behavior as being due to circumstance, less due to that person's personality, characteristics, strengths. It's going to be due to circumstance, right? Because it's positive. So we're taking away the good stuff from that person that we're observing. And the other side of this is that if we are observing behavior that is negative, unfavorable, undesirable behavior, that in someone else we attribute to personality. And we label that person as being difficult, stubborn, uncooperative, rude, angry, all kinds of those negative adjectives. Those get heaped on the person. The situation has nothing to do with it if you're looking at someone else's behavior and it's not a nice behavior. It's all that person, right? Okay, so here's the interesting thing. When we look at ourselves, so I'm going to look at my own behavior and I see that I did something really wonderful and marvelous. So I'm looking at the positive, desirable, favorable side of the behavior spectrum. And of course, I am going to say, well, that was all me. That's because I'm determined and I'm smart and I'm tenacious and I'm willing to do what it takes to make it happen. When I'm looking at something that I did that wasn't so great, where maybe I had some unfavorable or undesirable behavior, I'm going to explain that away because I know that I am a wonderful person, so I'm going to put that all on the situation and say, well, you don't understand. This was going on, and then this happened, and I really had no control over it, right? So we have this opposite thing happening. When it's ourselves and things don't go well, we explain it away. That's like not, didn't have anything to do with me. That was all circumstantial. I couldn't control it. But when it's somebody else, it becomes very personal. This person is a bad person. That all of those not good feeling adjectives that we listed earlier come out. And then on the other side, for the positive behavior, if it's myself, then I own it and I take credit for it and I say, yeah, that's because I'm awesome, right? When it happens to somebody else, no, well, things were just stacked up right for you. It was just, the other team wasn't playing as well, or, you had a really good breakfast this morning. Something like that. We take away the opportunity for the personality and the characteristics and who the person is to be a part of that success. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, there's no way I do this. There's no way I would do this to my kids, because that would be something that a horrible parent would do, right? And here is where it starts. You're talking about a behavior of somebody else, and you're saying that it's this undesirable behavior, and there's no way that you could do it, and so that person must be bad. Everybody commits FAE. Everybody does it. I will say that the stronger the relationship is, the stronger the connection is between the person who is doing the observing and the person who is the subject of the observation. Whether that means that you are observing yourself, you have a good relationship with yourself, an understanding relationship with yourself, or whether that person is your child or your partner or another parent, the stronger that connection is, the less influence FAE is going to have. And the more you will be able to see that behavior is due to a lot of complicated things. And you won't automatically say, well, you're just being disrespectful, or that's quite frankly rude. That kind of stuff. So I'm talking about this because I see it come up with parents every single week. Every week I see copious examples of FAE. And these are not parents that don't care about their kids. They do care about their kids. They're very vested in making sure that they're strengthening these relationships, which is why we're working together. They want to learn and they want to change themselves so they understand this stuff and they can have more peace and joy and respect at home. They can have that love where they want to be around each other and they want to hang out. That's really what we're going for. So I'll give you some examples of the kinds of things that I hear and see in interactions between parents and kids. Now, if I were to, I'll take a session that I had last week with a family where mom was really frustrated because she was exploding frequently. Her kids were making messes all over the house. So her son was leaving clothes and sports equipment everywhere. And her daughter tended to make great big messes in the kitchen. Neither one of these kids was picking up along the way, or even very much later. And what I noticed in the conversation is that both of these kids have a lot going on in their schedules. They are going from activity to activity to activity to activity. So there's not a lot of time for them to have this smooth transition where they can get all of the things that they need, put away all the stuff that they don't need, and be out the door again to the next thing. And so, because of the way things are currently organized, they blow into the house, They do all of this stuff that they need to do, and they get what they need, and they get out. They're not lollygagging around. They're doing the best that they can. So this is what I hear from Mom. Well, he's so dirty and nasty, and he leaves his stuff all over the place, and it's sweaty, and it smells, and it's just gross. He's so sloppy, and he's going to be like this for the rest of his life, and he's going to have to find somebody that will love him the way that I do and pick up his stuff. Now, this is not a verbatim conversation. This is kind of a blend of many conversations that I've had with people, but that's the kind of stuff that Mom sees in her son's behavior. So she's making this very personal about her son, and it's nothing about the circumstance. Likewise, when she talks about her daughter, she says that she comes into the kitchen and she thinks she's being helpful by making her own food, and really she's just making it harder for everybody else because she makes it a disaster area so that no one else can come in and use the kitchen. And that is disrespectful and rude, and I feel like she's treating me like her slave and that she just expects me to clean all of this stuff up. And how could she be so inconsiderate? So you hear this again, this a very personality-driven explanation for this behavior when a lot of what is happening is very circumstantial. That these two kids are totally maxed out schedule-wise, and they don't have the capacity or the system to be able to come in and do things neatly and cleanly and be on time. And my assistant is coming into the room any moment, so we're about to have an interesting interruption. So now I make a habit of asking parents about this. So now can you think about a time that you may have left a bit of a mess in a room? Oh, yeah, well, 3 weeks ago, I had this week that was just so overscheduled, and I had to get the kids here, and then I had to get them there, and I was on carpool that week, and all of this stuff was going on, and I was really stressed at work, and I had all of these appointments to do, and so I would just come in and do stuff, and then leave the mess there, knowing that I had to come in and pick it up later, but I didn't have time to do it right then. And that's when I just am quiet for a little bit, and I let that sink in, because that is FAE. That's totally FAE. When it's Mom's situation, it's all about the situation. Well, of course I left a mess. I had to do this and this and this and this and this, and there wasn't time to do all of that and be tidy. So it's not that I'm sloppy or disrespectful or lazy. It's that I was pressed for time, and there was no other viable option for me to be able to do all of this stuff and get out of the house on time. And for her kids, it's different. Her kids are slovenly, and they're messy, and they're gross, and they're disrespectful, and they're rude, and they're inconsiderate. So we'd like to think that FAE doesn't apply to us as parents because it is designed to explain that perception of behavior with people who are essentially strangers. But I think that we have so much of a desire as parents to understand what our kids are doing and the reasons why they're doing them, that we are very quick to jump on these explanations. And those easy explanations are easy explanations. We can get to them the fastest, and so those are the ones that stick in our heads. The trouble with this is that over time, we wind up applying these labels to our kids, and that comes out. So our kids hear that we think that they're lazy, that they're sloppy, that they're messy, that they're rude, that they're angry, that they're whatever it is that's coming out as a personality attribute that the parent is shoehorning them into, when it may be the situation. So that is fundamental attribution error. I hope that is something that you can find, that you can apply in your life. I know you can, because I know that you're doing it just like everybody else is. The trick is in being able to recognize it, to see it, and to have some wisdom about how you're using that information and how you can change.